Hello and welcome to today's class. So today we're going to be designing this little application you are seeing here. So by the end of this class you'll be able to design this application. We're going to talk about CSS. It doesn't matter whether you have known CSS before or not, so just stick through this course. We've prepared it to help you design even this kind of form with all these kind of features you are seeing here, and then by the time we click aside, have all these kind of features and all that. How to submit is actually working cool. Then how to do all these kind of balls and then design it on the fly using just one line of code. And at the end of the day, I'm going to teach you the very big difference, the major difference between is before class element and after class element, and how to actually apply it to your work. So stay tuned and then watch to the end so you'll be able to design this thing. At the end of this course, you'll be able to do much more with CSS, and this is actually the one of the, I think this should be the second video of the series we are running on CSS. So stay tuned with us in our live classes and live session so you can get in tune with this. Thank you so much and see you in the class. Quickly, so I'm going to talk about these two things. How to connect CSS to HTML, and I'm going to talk about the 9 CSS selectors, and I will explain the 9 of them today right now, and then we'll call it a 9th. We'll have barely 30 minutes to go. Then after that we'll fire them with some other things. So I suggest you just give me your strict and undivided attention. Now, of course, the class is being recorded after, but I might not push it. Maybe by tomorrow morning I should be able to push it online and then also send the link in the group chat so that those that missed the class can actually join the class. All right. So starting from where we left off, we talked about connecting CSS to HTML, and there are basically 3 methods or 3 ways you can connect CSS to HTML. The first one I'm going to talk about is the embedded method, embedded CSS, or you can call it, let me use the pipe character, or you can call it inline styling. So embedded style or inline styling. And remember, CSS is not a programming language, it's a style sheet, like we said in the other video. The next one is internal styling or style sheet. You can call it style sheet or styling. And then the last but not the least, which is actually the most professional way, is actually the external styling or style sheet. I call it style sheet actually. So these are the 3 major ways you can style CSS. So we have the embedded style or the inline styling, and I'll explain in a minute. We have the internal styling also, and then we also have the external styling. So after that I'm going to talk about the CSS selector. So let me talk about these 3 methods of styling CSS. Now in our VS Code, I have our project opened up, still the same folder, introduction to HTML, that I've been working on. So today I'm going to create a new file just to start things afresh. And if we go over here in our links, I'm going to use the download. I'm going to link it to the download. So I'm going to create a download.html and a contact.html, so that when we click on this link, it actually links us to the place. Look at what I'm saying. I'll come over here, click on create file, and then I'm going to create contact dot html. Okay, so I'll just do shift exclamation tab to give us the emet abbreviation. Press enter, and it's going to give us this boilerplate. I'll press alternate Z on the system so that I can see them well, and then Control B to expand the window. Alright, so here I'm going to say this contact, I'm going to say contact. I'll just call it a contact page. Alright, so contact page. So here we run this page. I'll just put H1. I'm going to say contact us now. Yeah, now for your intensive training. Alright, I'll save. So if I click on here, I'm not going to say anything. So if I click on contact page, nothing is happening. You see, nothing is happening. But if we want to link it to this thing, to this stuff, so that it's actually work. So to do that, I'm going to open. You can do Control B or just click here, and then I'm going to open this tab. Go to the. This is actually the, I think, about us page. Go to the about us page and make sure that where I have the contact page here, you see, it's actually asterisk. So instead of having it as asterisk, I'll simply come over here and change it to contacts.html and save, and that's actually what you see now. The link is active. If you can see it, it's naturally blue and it's active. It's clickable. So while I'm at it, I'm going to, okay, let me leave this one. We'll do it when the time reach there. So I can actually click on this link and then hide it back so I can have a room here to work with. So just close about us page. We are done with that for now. So if I click on contacts now it takes us to this page, which is actually what you just wrote here, saying contact us now for your intensive training, and that's exactly what we have here. Contact us now for your intensive training. So that's how we can actually route this page to each other. Now, what if I want to add embedded styling? Remember here I talked about embedded styling. So the first thing we have is embedded or inline styling. So how can we do that? To do that, we need to add an attribute. Now there is one of the videos, you can check it up on YouTube. I talked about HTML. I've forgotten the title, but I talked about HTML attributes. Okay, talk about HTML attributes. Okay, so one of the attributes we talked about there was style attribute, which allows us to, so if I can zoom in here, see I actually have style attributes. Okay, so I think I should even stay zoomed in. It's actually better when I zoom in like this. Yeah, let me keep it this way. Yeah, I think it's okay. You can see it better now. Okay, all right. So what I will do is I will add style here. So let me say I want to add a background color like I did in the other ones. Like this one is blue. I want to add a background color there, and maybe a background color to my page and all that. So I'm going to click on contact us to come back here. And remember, I'm using live server. So that it auto reloads my page. So I'm going to click here, and what I need to do here is to add background color. So I'll say background color. Okay, it will just pop up for me. I'm going to use blue, so I'll just type blue here, this blue, and if I save Ctrl X, you see that automatically I have a blue background on this text here. And you can see that the text is not good to be black because this is a contrasting color, this is also another contrasting color, so it's not going to work. So I need to add I need to brighten this color. Okay, so to do that, I'll come over here and add a color. So I want the text to have a color of white, so I just type white and save. You see that now the text color is white. Very simple, very simple. So what I did was just to add background color of blue, and it gave it a blue color, blue background, and then I added a color of white. So notice that I typed background color, and for the text I just said only color. I didn't say text color, I just said only color, and it worked. And now this is not looking too good. I want to add padding around this page so that it will look better. So once I do it, you see what I mean. Padding is just a space around the borders of a container. So I'm going to add padding of 10 pixels. Pixels is a unit of measurement. I'll still cover it in associated classes. So if I do Ctrl S and save, you see that it actually has a space around it now. Okay, I can actually go ahead and border and add border around it and do so many. There's so many things I can do here, but gradually we'll look into those. All right, so that's inline styling. Let's say I have like I did in the last class, I have a list here. Inside this list I can have different types of lists. Let me say I have orange here, Control Enter, and I have let's say I have purple here, Carica papaya. Okay, I know I'm moving with the speed of light, vibrating per second, and it's just because I want to cover a lot today in the limited time. So here, let me say finally I have what can I have here? Let's say I have palm tree, or palm fruit, whatever. Alright, so and I want to give this one inline styling. So you see I have this stuff here, I want to give it styling. All I need to do is to come over here, select this one. If I want to do it on the parents, now this is the parent, this UI is the parent of these ones. So if I want to do it on the parents, if I want it to affect all of them, I can just come over here and say style, the same thing we did. And let's assume we want to do background color. You know, can still do background color or anything anyway. It's not just I can say background color red, for example. If I save, see that it actually has a background color of red. That's what we are seeing. So because it's on the parents, it's covering all of them. But if I should move this style, Ctrl X to cut it and paste it inside this orange tag, the list element that is containing orange as the inner HTML. I can do or inner text, Ctrl V here, and then if I save, you see that the background is only on the orange and it's not affecting the other ones, because when I paste it on the parents, it affects the whole children, but when I paste it only on one of the child elements, and it's going to affect only the child element. That is what we are saying. Very, very simple and straight to the point. Okay, so that is that on inline styling. Don't worry that we're still doing background color. You can do so many things, like you can transform the characters to uppercase and so many things. I'll do more of that one in time to the other styling. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the inline the internal styling. How do we do internal styling? To do that, I'm going to remove this style I have here, but I can do Ctrl Z to remove it. But then I can leave this one. In fact, I will remove this one too. I will remove this one. Okay, so if I save, everything is back to square one the way it was before. So what I'm going to do is to come over here. Please make sure that whenever you want to do this, you are inside your H session. This is H session. Remember, this is the doc type. We have the HTML. Inside the HTML, we have the head. Let me close it up so you see what I'm saying. So this is the doc type. Move this over. Tab. Okay. Oh, sorry. Tab. Alright, so inside the head, this is the doc type describing the document type that which is HTML5 here. This is HTML5. So then inside it we have this tag, which is very, very important. We have the opening tag of the HTML and the closing tag of the HTML. Just like every other language, like PHP, they have opening and closing tag. Well, not every language anyway. Most languages does, like CSS and JavaScript. Okay, but here I have the head section and I have the body section. Okay, in the head section, that's where I want to put the CSS right here. So immediately after the title, I'm going to put CSS tag here, and then the CSS tag I want to just call it style. Inside this style, this is where I put everything I need. So inside this style, I will now start using my selectors. For example, if I open the body tag element and come over here, see that this one is called H1. Okay, so I can just call this H1 and give it style. Remember, in a previous class, I talked about how the style should be, the anatomy of a style rule. That is how a style should be. Anatomy of the style rule. Okay, which will say that you need the selector or selectors. Let's just use selector for now. So you need the selector. Inside here, you say, for example, let's use the background color we'll be using. You can say background dash color. Okay, we put the color we want. Let's say here we want it to be red, and then of course we close the style. So this is a simple style rule. So before the selector, in our case it will be H1, and then under that you call the property, this is the property you want, and then you call the value you want. So what we do basically is that we call the name of the selector, we come over here and call the property we want to use, or properties, anyone, and then we put the value we want to assign to that property and we close it. So this selector now, in place of this selector, can actually be this can be a H1, sorry, H1 or H2 or even the body tag or any tag at all. Okay, and you can separate them with comma like this. I'm going to talk about multiple selectors when you separate them with comma, or just individual selector when you just have only one thing there. You can have something like body. Say we want body to have a background property or a property of background color, and then we can have a specific color here. Okay? And the color can also even come with code. For example, color code for red will be something like this, okay, which I'm going to talk about as we proceed in the code. So there are so many things to talk about in the code as we proceed. So I suggest you just stick with it. By God's grace, by next week we'll be wrapping up with CSS. I'm going to try and see if we can speed it up and wrap up with CSS. Alright, so let's apply this particular style here. I can actually copy it, but let me still try it again. But let me copy it because of time. So I'm going to come over here in our style and then press that type to make sure I move it over. Okay, of course there's nothing like property and value. Move that, and then we have our background color to be red. Now this is red, it's actually red. And if you are using VS Code, if you hover on it, you actually select any color choice. You can change the color to whatever you want. Let me say I want this particular color and give me the RGB, but I will talk about now. Okay, so if I say this now, you see that our background color have actually changed, and we have this dark. So to make this text visible, I'll have to change the color text to white. So I can come over here and come over here on the body and say I want the color white. Or I can use a color code also. I will say FFF save and text inside there white. So that is how cool we can actually design using inline style. So this is called inline. Sorry. This is called internal style. Internal style. So now I'll make it comment. To make it the current, I just use Control slash on my keyboard and make it using my I can use command slash. So that's what we are doing, and that's how we do it. Alright. But then that is all for now. That is all for internal style. So if I want to target only this H1, for example, I can actually select it. I'll make sure that this is the body. Remember, so immediately after the body, I'll come under it and use H1. And then let's say H1, I want it to be capital letters, or I want small letters. I'll come over here and say transform. And you don't worry about the size. So let them transform opacity. Sorry, text transform. Text transform. Text transform. The transform is another property. Text transform. Opacity. That's actually now opacity. And you can change it to lowercase. Save now in lowercase. You can even change it to capitalize. So that each of the letters will capitalize. And that's how I'm going to do each of the letters there now capitalize. You can underline it, you can overline it, and there are so many things you can do. Don't worry, when we talk about text property, I'm going to cover everything about it. That's when we start talking about property. For now, today we'll talk about selectors, and later on we'll talk about those. Alright, that is what we have in this particular. Of course, if I want to do the UL, I can actually select it and then do some other things. But that's where I want to stop for now. I'm going to comment it out so that it will become normal the way it is. Then we're going to try the sense size. So if I say we should have the normal state that we had before. So if I want to now connect it with our external style sheet. Now how do we do external style sheet? Remember, I just talked about the internal. So I want to talk about external style sheet, which is actually I think in my own opinion, it's actually the professional way. I think this should be the professional way of using CSS. So this is the professional way of using CSS, the most acceptable for me. I mean, in my own opinion of using CSS. However, I'm going to try it out so you see how it is, and it's quite simple. It's not difficult. To do that, we need to create the style sheet externally. So I'm going to hide this particular one. So you can hide, so it will be like that. So I'm going to create a CSS file. So I'm going to open up here. So to create a CSS file, we basically only what we basically need to do is to actually to create a file. Create a file that ends with the extension .css. So the file has to end with an extension with .css. So that's how it should be. I mean, that's not how it should be. Sorry, I'm just showing you how it should be. So let's click create a file. It makes sense by the time we do it. So I'm going to do Control B. I'll just open up my Explorer here. You see, I've already created a folder called it CSS, and that's where I want to embed all my CSS files. Okay, but I don't want to do that now. So I can just to make it simple, I'll just on the home page, which is not advisable anymore. I'm going to create a file. I'm going to call it styles with s.css. Now this is my CSS file. Make sure the s is double, because if it wants s, actually now is C# file, no longer CSS. C# programming language. So you have double s be a CSS file. Alright, so this is my style, and I'm going to actually come over to the home page. Now I'm going to before we do that, let me just do I'll select the body, which is the universal selector, and then I'm going to say background color. Pardon me, I'm using background color. Then I'll just set it to red. Now you will notice that immediately that if I save this file, nothing happens. Okay, nothing happens to our page. It's not red yet because we have not linked it to this file. For us to use this style CSS, this particular code here, for this thing to work in our website here, we need to link it to our contact page and any page that we want to access. To do that, we need to use the link tag. So I'll say linking linking external CSS file. Okay, convert it comment by holding down command slash or slash window. Alright, so I'll say link, and then I'm using CSS code again. So as we proceed in the class, I'll use some of these targeting. So I press enter, and it's going to give me this link saying open tag link, and then I'm going to have the rare file. That's the type of file, that's the kind of type of file I want. And it needs to be a type, very very important. And then you need to reference this hyperreference. So hyperreference the link of the file is actually style. And now if I save and nothing happens, okay, and nothing happens because it's not seeing this file yet, and I'll show you in a minute. So what I can do is come over here, do dot, which is the current directory and the root directory, and I want to find the file called styles.css. Remember it has s here, styles.css and not style.css. And if I do Ctrl S now, you see that our page is now red in color because we have successfully linked this file where we have red color to this particular one by using the link, this tag here. There's one more attribute, okay, linker. So let's make sure it's working. I'm going to change this red to green and save. So I save it to green, and the minute I save, you see that it changes to what? To green. Changes to green. That's what we are saying, because now our style is actually linked. So if we do any other thing here, for example, if we select the H1, let me say I select the H1 here, okay, and then I want the H1 to change the color and become, let's say, white in color, and save. You see that if I come over here, see now H1 is now white in color, while this one is stayed the same color. If I want to still change this one, I can also select them by simply coming over here, say UL LI. So I want to select all of the LI in the UL. I want to give them the color of, let's say, white again. And if I save, and if you notice very well, you see that they are now white in color. So this is how we can actually link an external file. This is the professional way of linking CSS. Over the course, this is the method we'll be using to link our CSS as we proceed in the course, and I'll be showing you how you can use how you can do other things, you know, like import external media, even import external CSS using the import. Say we're going to look at how to create CSS variables and so on. And I don't know, I dropped the course outline on the group chat, so you can actually check it out and see the courses we need to treat and how we need to do. So from now henceforth, the classes are going to be very 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 important, that no one is supposed to actually miss it. And that good thing we're actually recording the classes. Okay, so that is it. So sometimes when you run this code, okay, if you go to developer menu, which I'll show you in a minute, okay, let me just expand this in a minute. If I do Ctrl Shift I in my key on my system, or F12, or come over here and click on more tools and click on developer to see Ctrl Shift I, okay, or I can actually press F12 on your keyboard, and then you should be able to see what we call the developer tools, because you and I are developers, so this tool is made for us. So right now there is no error on the keyboard, but most times if you have error in linking your file, it will actually come over here. Let's create an error and see how that works. So if I come over here in my CSS, let's say I change this into CSS2 and save it, you see automatically there's an error now saying that refuse to apply style from this particular style CSS. Why does it? Because its MIME type is not used, so the HTML type is not supported and the type is not. So that's what it's actually saying. But the most important part of this error is that this file is not found. The CSS is not seeing this file. So for it to see this file, we need to make sure that the name is actually spelled correctly, so that you can see the error is actually gone and our style has been applied. However, it complained about what we call the MIME type, which I'm going to touch now. Okay, so let me close this off. Okay, so the MIME type. So what is MIME type? Most times you get this error in CSS. So MIME type. So, and I think I should give assignment on this anyway, but then let me leave it. So MIME type. So this is actually a type that is actually, but let me just show you what to do to solve this kind of problem. I mean, you can Google it online, but you can do a quick fix by just coming up after here, immediately after this. Just like we have these attributes, this red attribute and this red attribute and this hyperref attribute, and just come over here and add a type attribute, okay, and then you're going to say test/css, and that's all. So when you say test/css, you actually solve this problem of actually this MIME type problem. And if you save, we see that our style still applies, but this time around it's actually better because we are telling this document that the type of file we are sharing with it is a text file, and it's actually a CSS language. You know, it's a CSS, it's a style sheet, you know, as we are referencing here. This is very, very important. Sometimes you run into some errors like that. Alright, so these are the three methods we can actually link CSS to our file. I've talked about the embedded or inline style, I've talked about the internal styling, and then finally we talked about the external styling. I want you to actually practice these things by yourself. You know, when you have your system, put it on and try. Thank God you don't have anything to install yet. We haven't gotten to the point where we need to install modules, so we are still on the point where we can just do this quickly and get it done with. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the selectors. Okay, I want to talk about the selectors. So we have majorly 9 different selectors. So majorly 9 different selectors that some people might disagree actually, but I'm going to mention the 9 of them, and then we can start treating them one after the other. So the first one I want to mention here is the universal selector, and this should be in our previous notes. Universal selector. So I don't think I'll be adding selectors anyway. The universal selectors. Then the next one is I'll talk about tag selector. I'll just call it tag, so the selector is there. The next one is I'll talk about class selector. After that, I'll talk about attributes. I'll talk about ID selector. After that, I'll talk about attribute selector. They are almost the same thing. In some textbooks they'll tell you they are the same thing. Okay, attribute selector. After that, I'll talk about the multiple selector. After that, I'm going to talk about the descendant selector. And then after that, I'm going to talk about after descendant selector, I'm going to talk about the pseudo class selector, and then after that, I'm going to talk about the pseudo element selector. So these are the 9 pseudo elements. Sorry, the pseudo elements. Yeah. So these are the 9 different selectors. I want you to have them at the back of your mind. In fact, it should be in the front of your mind. You should have them in front of your mind. So I'm going to talk about them quickly, and then we'll call it a night. Alright, so let's quickly do that. I'm going to talk about this universal selector. So coming with the universal selector, and I'm going to drop these notes in the group chat. In the Google Classroom, in our classroom, so that anyone can actually pick it up. Alright, so talking about these selectors, we have 3 major universal selector. We have the HTML selector, we have the body selector, and we have the hash selector. So anywhere in programming you see hash, it represents all. This hash actually means all. All. So anytime in programming you see this, we are talking about all. In SQL, when you say select all, in SQL we can do something like select all from, you know. So it's actually what it means. So anytime you see it, we are talking about all. So let me quickly talk about these 3 selectors, and then we'll move on to tag selector and so on. Alright, in this, so like I said, I will no longer be using I'll be using the external styling. I will no longer be using this internal styling and other ones. So our file will still be here, it will still be okay running like that. So over here, this is where I'm going to deal with all this stuff. Now, the universal selector, I'm going to talk about them one after the other. So leaving out the styles we have. So here, talk about universal selector. So to write comment in CSS, like I discussed in the previous class, is to put a // then put asterisk, then give your space. Anything writing in between here becomes a multi-line comment. So this can be a multi-line comment. Like you can break it into different lines. That's what we mean by multi-line comment. So it can be in different lines, and it will still work. So anything in between these 2 quotes, this guy and this guy, is actually definitely a comment. And this comment is not just in CSS. You can do it in C#, and I think in C#, I can do it in PHP, and I think I don't know, in JavaScript too. Yeah, Node, all JavaScript frameworks can do the same thing there. Alright, so what I want to do here is actually to test this and do Ctrl/ or Command/, and then I'll talk about the universal selector. So under here, I'm going to have a universal selector. The first one I want to talk about is the asterisk, which selects everything. If I do space this, okay, and I'm going to remove all the styles we have previously and then gradually add them back as we proceed. So if I save, it should come back to normal how it was before we started. Okay, so that is what we have now. That's what we have. All right, inside here, let's say I want everything I type to have a color of white, for example. Yeah, I mean that should disappear everything. So if I save, and you see everything goes off, they're actually there. If I drag this thing, if I select them, they're actually there. But this universal selector actually selects everything on the page. So what do you actually use it for? We use it to set off the margin and the padding of the page. So that's what we call margin. Margin is actually the space within the borders of a container. So if I have a container, a box, I've closed that diagram. A box, the margin is actually the space in between it. So I'll show you in a minute anyway. So I'm going to zero out the margin, and I'm going to zero out the padding. Now, if I save, I want to notice the difference. This is how it is now. Okay. If I comment this out and save, now this is how it is. Now this space that you're seeing between these two, this space you're seeing between these, the border and this thing is actually a margin space. Okay. Margin and padding actually. So we can remove them by just putting this. And let me demonstrate that further what margin is all about. So if I do Control Shift I or Command Shift I on Mac, so I'm going to have this small box here. So this is actually a developer tool that we're using. So click on elements. When you click on elements, you're going to get a style here. Look at style here. So look at this, but I want you to look at this box here. So this box explains everything we have here. This is the margin. You see, once I hover on the margin, the place that is selected now is actually the margin of this page, and the place that is selected now is this place that is green now is the padding, and this is actually the space itself. Immediately after this space, we have the padding. After that space, we have the border. If it has any border, it will be highlighted. After that, we have the margin. So the margin is what we're actually removing from this page, because by default, Chrome comes with a margin. Look at it from the developer tool. Anytime you run a website, Chrome also have a margin on it. So if I open this up, you see that Chrome is adding 8 pixels margin to all borders, all four corners of this page, and we don't want that in our website. We want to remove it. So what do? We'll come over to our code and say, please zero out the margin and padding. Instead of being 8, if it's not being 8 pixels, we want it to remove it and make it what? 0. And that's always, if you save, see that the margin will now be removed. Now it's removed. Now if you come over here, you see that the margin 8 has been removed. You see, it's actually commented out as because this last one now. Remember in CSS we say that last true always win. So this one becomes the last true. And if you change very well, you see that this style is actually added on the universal selector on the body here. It's added on the body universal selector. Okay. So we actually created our own, which if I mark it out here, you see that the margin comes back, and this one is actually removed, and then this one is active. Okay, and then you can check it in. Okay, and this one we don't have ability to change it because we're not the one that created it. It's from the user agent, which is actually the Chrome itself. We cannot change it. So but we can write our own to overwrite that one. And it's important to know that we can actually write CSS from here. Like I can create a CSS element. In fact, maybe when you're debugging, you can actually create a CSS. And we're going to talk about this in a subsequent video where we'll talk about how to even select different elements and view their properties and methods. As you're hovering on them, they're showing the properties and methods. So we're going to talk about that in our subsequent classes. Anyway, let's proceed. So we zero out the margin and the padding of this particular website, and then of course we might need to add them later. So, but then there's something else I want to do. I want to add another property. So this is a basic website. If I want to design a website right now, this is a basic setting I need to do. So I'm going to say box sizing, and I'm going to set it to border box. And now you don't need to worry so much about what this is doing. So what it means is that it's setting all our pages to have the equal, as in whatever thing we set inside a container, we want it to stay within the borders of that container. We don't want it to overflow and all those kind of things. So we can even add overflow. There's an overflow property where we say overflow, hidden, and all that. So we're going to come through all of this gradually. So that is what I want to have for all the elements. This affects every element in our page. Okay, so if I save, it will affect all the elements in our page. Another universal selector I want to talk about is the HTML. I can talk about the HTML. You can also do this thing with the HTML, but I prefer doing it with the asterisk tag. So, but then you can also add a studio element class, which I will show us as we proceed. A studio element, that's before and after. I add it to my website, but then or application. But then let's leave it like this as we proceed. I'm going to talk about that because I'm talking about the universal selectors for now. So let's skip to that. Let's stick to that, sorry. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is I'll talk about font family here, for example. Okay, I can talk about font family. So in the font family, I want to use Arial, Helvetica, sans serif, this particular one. So Arial, font, Helvetica, and sans serif. What sans serif means? Arial is actually the name of a font. So what I'm saying here is, please use Arial font, comma. If you don't see Arial, use Helvetica. If you don't see that, use sans serif. Now, sans serif is just the style of the font. Add the style to, remove the style. Sans means to remove. Okay, like or not. Sans means not style or no style, kind of. So serif is actually the style, saying no style. The style is actually what do you mean by style? Is just those how do I describe it? You know, when you do fonts, okay, for example, if you look at this font, you see that there is this curve. Okay, if you look at the C now, I can zoom in there. Okay, if you look at the C now, there is this curve here, or this C has this curve here. Okay, like this, you have all these curves, all these things, styling there. So once I save, you see that they will actually disappear. You see, so if I say that, I see that those curves have disappeared because I'm using sans serif. So I'm saying sans to remove the styles. Okay, I don't need the styles. That's what I'm saying there. Okay, so and it's quite simple as that. Alright, so let me bring it back to, I think it was 100 or so. Yeah, 125 is okay. Alright, so the next thing I want to define is my default font size. So I want a font size of by default normally 16, so I can keep it to that 16 pixels. I keep the font to 16 pixels. So that's my default size. So on the body is where I can now take the styling to a higher level. Like I said, on the body I want to add a background color just like we did before. Add a background color. There are different background colors you can add. You can even use background code #F4 F4. This is called the hexadecimal color code. Okay, so I can use that like that and save. I can have that color on any other color or any other color. But then the color I want to add here is I want to use that purple kind of color. Yeah. So if I save, I'll have that purple dim color. I want it to be dim, so that I can also set other elements. So these are the universal selectors, and I've used 3 of them in a way that I can. And then in the body, I might say I want to add a small padding around it or margin. So what I want to do is on the body, I want to set a width for the body. I don't want it to be 100%. I actually want it to be 90%. And if I save, you see that there will be a space here. So I don't want this space. I don't want this to be touching here. So I'm going to push it to the middle by using my margin. So I can say margin, which is the space we want to create. Now I'm going to set 2 values here. Margin on the top and bottom. So this is actually the top, and this is the right, this is the bottom, this is the left. Okay, so this is how margin is set. I'll just comment it out and leave it like that. So under here I'm going to say margin. So margin on the top, I don't want any margin on the top, so I'll leave it to 0. Margin on the right, I don't know, I want it to be by default, so I'm going to say auto. Margin on the bottom, I want it to be 0. I don't want margin there. And margin on the left, I want it to be auto. And now if I save this code, you see that my content is now at the middle. So there is a space here and there is a space here. There are equal spaces between my container, and that is how I want my website to look. And that is looking like it, and this is part of responsive design. So if I push this over, you see that it's always at the middle. So let's be at the middle as we produce. See, always at the middle. Okay, that's what we can do there. Alright, so but instead of writing this code here, there's a better way of writing it, which I can now say that I want the same thing, just the same margin. Okay, now I want on the top and bottom, I want it to be 0, and on the left and right, I want it to be auto, and that is it. Instead of writing it, repeating, since I'm repeating this thing 2 times, I can just copy one and just leave one and use one. So I'll comment this add 2, and now if I save, I have the same thing. So instead of repeating it 2 times, and it happens many times in properties, instead of repeating something 2 times, just put it this way and it will work. And that is what I want to do for that. And then let's look at other type of styling, the tag styling. Here we can now take this H1 and H2 and then give them a better look and all that. Alright, so going back to our codes, I know the time is fast spent, but let me rush. I want to talk about this tag selector, and maybe I'll just complete this in our, I'll just record it as a complete recording with this, and then we can watch it later, but we don't end up burning the whole thing. Alright, So tag selector is just using HTML tags. Okay, HTML opening and closing. You don't even need the closing tag. So whenever we talk about tags, anything that is in between here, that is tag. Okay, so we can use the tag to select elements. So any tag at all can actually select an element. And of course, we have a tag called tag. Okay, we have a tag called tag. There are so many HTML5 tags, and even the semantic tags we covered in the previous videos. You can actually check them out and see what they are. Alright, so using tag selector, let's say for example inside our HTML, let's go back to our HTML. I have this H1. Remember, you can actually select this H1 by using the tag. So I can come over here, though you have a little bit of disadvantage, which I'll cover later. Okay, but for now it's totally fine. I'll come over here and say we want the color of that tag to be white, and if we save, you see that the color is going to be white. Okay, so the color of that tag is white. Now I want it to have capitalized, so I can come over here and say test dash transform. I want it to be capitalized, and then if I save, see that the tests are now actually capitalized in that form. Okay, I can actually space the letters and do so much. If I space the letters, I can actually say letter spacing. I think letter spacing, and like I say, I want it 2 pixels or something. I don't know. Save, and then the letters actually spaced like that. So I can do so many things. I can even center it by saying test align, test dash align, and I say center, and if I save, now it's actually at the center of the page. So there are so many things you can do with the CSS file. This is actually where you create all the styles you'll be seeing on in online listing. All the websites you see in all the applications, these styles is being applied in them. Okay, and that's how everything works. Even some of these applications we're using, like Chrome, even this VS Code I'm using, these are the way some of the styles were created for some of these applications. Okay, even the games you play, this is how the styles were created, creatively like this, and you take your time and then design what you want, especially when you're using CSS. But you can of course use libraries and framework of your choice, and everything will still work out fine. Alright, that is that. So let me target this one. I don't know, on your own you can actually try and see if you can do this. If you're using your system, you can pause the video maybe when you're watching it or something, see if you can actually style this one, then change the color to be white or something, and use it. So but I'm going to do it right away anyway. So I'll do UL, and I'm going to select the LIs inside it. So I'm selecting the UL. If you go over to our HTML, you see that we have a parent, and inside the parent there are children. So I'm going to call the parent, and then of course before the children. You cannot call the children without, you can do that, but it's not ideal. You can actually call the children without the parent, but I want to do it in a proper way. So I'll call the parent and then select the children, and it's going to affect all the children. So I'll come over here and say I want their color to be white. Let's start with that. So I want their color to be white. If I save, now the colors are white. Now I want to style it. I want to remove this dot. Okay, in fact I can change this dot to anything I want. In fact, let's change this dot to something else. So to do that, if you remember in our first video we did that. So to change the dot, I can say list style type. Okay, and then I'm going to change it to, see there are so many things I can do here. So what I want to do here, I can change it to square, I can change it to symbol, I can change it to Latin word. Let me change it to this and see. So if I save, list style type, let's change it to square. Maybe, yeah, okay, now it's a square. So and I want to add spacing in between it. So I'm going to add margin. So I'm going to add space between each of them. So I'll say margin around them. I'll just do 10 pixels and save. Now they are spaced out now. Okay, so and I think it's looking cool like that, but I can give background color and so on and so on, but I want it to be as simple as that. Okay, so that's for the tag. You can select as much tag as you want just by calling the name of the tag here. Just call the name of the tag as a selector, and then I open this curly braces and then apply your style. And then applying yourself, make sure you're closing each of the elements. If not, you might get into error. Okay, so the next tag we'll talk about, and then that's where I'm going to stop for tonight, is a class selector. Okay, so the class selector will basically need to give an attribute of class to an element. So give an attribute of class, and then you can call the name of the class. You can say class, class name. Just like if it's in React, you actually use. So in some application, this is actually class name like this, like in React. But then we'll keep it simple. So this will be the name of our class. In fact, let me put underscore here. name of our class. So let's do that, and then there's a class and ID. In fact, let's cover two of them at a time because they're actually the same thing. Well, almost the same thing. So class and ID is basically the same thing. The same thing we do, we just call ID and set it equal to and put the ID name. Okay, so the same thing we do here is the same thing we do here. The only difference is that here we actually use dot to represent the class, while here we actually use hash to represent the ID in CSS. Let me show you what I mean in a minute. So let's say in this particular HTML file I give orange. So since this URL is now, I can actually give it a class. Since it contains a lot of elements, I can give it a class of fruits, for example. Okay, now if I copy this class of fruits and of course save that, come over to CSS. So instead of using UL here, I can actually come over here and say dot fruits. Okay, use dot fruits to select that particular table, and if I save, you see we have the same thing, the same result by using class. Okay, so but you can actually use class and also use that same one, but make sure you write them together. You can say ul dot fruit, and if I save, I still have the same thing. Okay, so that is how it is to apply class. Very simple, very simple. But I'll do more example on that. So but let me say I want to select each of these elements and I want to select them using an ID. So I can give all of them the same class if I want, but then it doesn't make sense. So I'll come over here and give them different ID. So let me say I'll give this one ID of, and your ID can call it anything. Let me say I'll give this one ID of orange. ID is unique, you cannot repeat ID, very important. ID should be unique to each element. So I'll give this one orange class of paw or popo. Okay, I'll give it a class of yeah, let's leave it like that, it's fine. So I'll give this one a class of palm. Okay, and I save. Now I want to call each and every one of them and do a particular thing to them. So I'm going to open here, and under here I'm going to use hash because it's a class. Sorry, because of an ID, I'll say orange. So if I come over here to switch if it's working, I can actually disappear it by saying display none, and if I save, you see that orange is gone here. Okay, because I say display none. Okay, if you want to hide an element, and it's not just that, you can actually use visibility none too. So if I save it to come back, but you can also use visibility and say hidden, and if I save, it's not hidden. The difference is that display none will remove the element and even the space from here, but visibility will just hide it from the user, but it actually stay there. You see the space of the orange is still there, but when I did display none, if you check very well, you see that it actually removed it completely from the DOM. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So but we'll get that to that later. So under here, of course if I save it to come back, under here let me say I want to give orange background color of orange. So I'm going to give it background color of orange, and then I'm going to give it padding. I'll just give padding so that it will have small space around it. I'll just do 5 pixels, and then if I save, you see that orange now have background color of what? Orange. So let's do that of purple again. So I'm going to copy this because of our times, and then paste there. So I'm going to remember I give it a class of paw. Okay, sorry, an ID of paw, an ID. So if I go over here, see that it's actually an ID of paw ID. So go over here, and so let's say I'm going to give it a class of green. Let me give it light green, that kind of a thing. Light. So you can actually do light sea green. Okay, so you can actually do colors like this if you want. So if I save, I actually have that color light sea green. Okay, so that's how we can do colors. You can actually call a color dynamic color like red. I don't know if there's any color like that, but you can do that. So let me say palm tree. I'm going to give it a class of this actually an ID. I don't know why I keep saying class ID of palm, and then of course if I say it's going to assume that yellow, but then I want to change it, and then can I have palm red? Let me see palm. Something came out now. I'm going to use this one, even though it's not big, but then I can use it. So if I save, I have something like that. So this is how I can simply design this web page to be looking this good. Okay, by using ID. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop in this video, but in the remaining class I'm going to complete both the attributes, the multiple selector, the descendant selector, and what have you, and I'm going to explain all of them in depth, and I'm going to publish the video tonight, and I'll send us the link. Alright, so I don't know if you are still there with me, but I want to stop here, and then I'll continue this subsequently in our class. Alright, so I know you might have questions. So what I want to do is that we will practice. I'm going to give us a kind of an assignment. We do immediately after selectors. We do the assignment. Then after the assignment, I'm going to we're going to do a classwork where we do it together. We solve it together. You contribute. You share your screen and you contribute and tell us what is going on with your stuff. Right. So that is what I want us to have in mind. So, but for now, this is here. I'll be stopping, and then we'll continue from here in the next section. All right. Next section.